ඔවුන්ගේ අනාගතයේ කොටසක් වන්නට ඉඩ නොදෙන්න. ඔබ මුහුදු වෙරළට යන සෑම අවස්ථාවකම වෙරළ පිරිසිදු කිරීමට පුංචි මිනිත්තුවක් වැය කරන්න. ප්ලාස්ටිසයිකල් වෙතින් පණිවිඩයක්.
In 2019, Kiehl's pledged to reduce 50% of its single-use polythene usage in stores by 2025. So far, on a monthly basis, we inspired 38,000 shoppers to switch to reusable bags and around 108 shoppers to bring their own containers for shopping. We replaced 132,000 plastic straws with paper straws while continuing to look for a sustainable solution for juice cups. Our top crust bread bags were replaced with compostable bags, reducing over 20,000 single-use polythene bags a day. Our fish, meat, fruit and vegetable counters also switched to compostable bags. That's not all. We continue to build awareness among our staff on the importance of reducing polythene usage and walk the journey towards reducing our impact on the environment, because together we can.
The ocean. Our island is surrounded by it. We live in the midst of it. Mesmerizing, enthralling, pleasing. Our ocean is unique, a vibrant marine habitat. We have loyal whales who never leave our seas. Turtles who always return to our shorelines. Mangroves sequestering carbon. Dugongs gliding beneath the waves. Seagrass meadows pumping oxygen we breathe. Underwater reefs sheltering marine life. But they're struggling. Coral reefs bleached. Our seabeds scraped over by foreign fishing trawlers. We're depleting our marine life through overfishing. Plastic and chemical waste pollution gush into our oceans. Coastal sand is disappearing. Marine animals killed by dynamite. Turtles entangling in goose nets. Ships colliding with whales. Climate change. Global warming. oil spills, coastal construction, ocean acidification. Ocean's life is draining. We need the ocean. Our survival depends on it. The sea around us is now a hotspot for geopolitics, trade, security, maritime ventures, and crime. Our impact on the ocean matters. Our ocean is our lungs, our hearts, our nerves. Without it, no one can survive. We can only thrive if our oceans survive. Let's strive to be the guardians of the ocean. Let us be the protectors, together, for our ocean.
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Kasumi Ranasinghe. I'm a core team member of the Pearl Protectors. I would like to welcome you all to the World Oceans Day Summit, where today's session is on alternatives to plastic under the theme of ocean pollution and solution. World Oceans Day Summit is hosted by the Pearl Protectors in partnership with the Marine Environment Protection Authority, Blue Resource Trust, and World Oceans Day organization. World Oceans Day Summit intends to delve into all aspects of the ocean around Sri Lanka while highlighting key challenges, opportunities, and inspiring Sri Lankans to love and care for our marine environment. You can learn more about the summit on pearlprotectors.org. The topic of the session is alternatives to plastic, which is a very important topic to discuss as we witnessed one of the worst ecological disasters a few days ago. And it raises the question of what we can do on an individual scale. Our oceans and coastline have been polluted with toxic and harmful chemicals and plastic pellets that have devastating consequences to marine life and the entire food chain. But we do have to recognize that this is one incident. But plastic and microplastics in our oceans and coastline is already abundant. So this topic focuses on eliminating single-use plastic items and products by switching to alternatives and what we can do as individuals to reduce our use of plastics. And it is my utmost pleasure to introduce some great guests today to talk about the topic, introducing Ms. Kanchana Weerakoon, who is the founder and president of Eco-Friendly Volunteers and introduced EcoBricks to Sri Lanka. And we also have Ms. Alina Fernando, who is also known as Eco-Conscious Warrior, who is an environmental activist and an advocate. So before we begin, I would like to request all the audience members to send us any questions you may have, and we will answer them at the end of the session. You can simply add your questions to the comment section on either Facebook or YouTube. So to start off, I would like to ask Ms. Kanchana, so with regard to the disaster that occurred recently, we are of course more conscious about the impact of plastic, but you have been practicing this for more than 20 years, and she And Ms. Kanchana, as far as I know, the municipal council had not gathered at her home for 16 years because she recycled her garbage inside her house. And so I would like to ask, why do you think it's important to switch to alternatives from plastic?
Well, Kasumi, thank you so much. That municipal council story really brings a smile to me always when I hear about it. Because I will tell you, when I have been practicing zero waste lifestyle, when I was in Sri Lanka, and now even that is my experience, because now I reside in New Delhi, India. I don't have the same experience here, even though I don't give garbage to outside of my home. I don't do everything within my home, but I give for recycling, and I make my compost and I upcycle or something. Because the municipal council reaction was when they come and ask, "Madam, where's your garbage?" When I said no garbage, "Are you eating garbage?" Something like that. So that's why I installed this. I had to tell them, yes, I'm eating them, because when I had to say that I'm composting my all wet garbage, obviously I'm eating it again. Yeah. So it's so funny. And answering your question, why it is important to switch to alternatives, I think my simple answer for that, it is very, very important as a human being to have your own happiness, because that is my first simple answer I can give you. Because when the Express Pearl ship incident happened, people started talking about plastic waste and how disastrous it is, and they were overwhelmed with all this information, and people were trying to comment on it, trying to, share information. But I didn't share any information other than few pictures on my Facebook, because I am not responsible for taking those pictures, but I just wanted to create some awareness. So I only once shared that. But I particularly stopped sharing such in a way because I don't want to, be negative about it. I'm always asking, are you all who are upset about this ship case, are you all aware of where your home waste will end up? And
That's so
was
true.
ending up for last few years. So for me, I have really, really happy moment that my hands are clean, that I didn't pollute any ocean or any soil for last 20 odd years, because we have been practicing this zero waste lifestyle, and no plastic was unnecessarily gone out of my home or even given to the municipal council, only if available for recyclers. But otherwise, everything is here that were not given for recycling. And in Sri Lanka, I have these bricks and structures made out of it. And here, this is in Delhi. I have about, for last 4 years, I have about 25 bricks now. You can understand how much I have reduced even using these non-recyclable plastics. So yes, why it is important? It is important for your own happiness as a great human being, that you are not damaging the environment, because it is important that we should stop damaging our environment. Therefore, individual level, you have to start making that change before you speaking about larger scale damages, because your individual damage would be more than that large scale damage, because your individual damage is over the many years, not only once. So it is very important for your own health, for your own happiness, for environmental good health, that you must switch alternatives for plastic wherever possible, whenever possible.
Wow, that's really inspiring, and thank you for that. And I would also like Miss Alina's input as well on that, on why. Sorry, go ahead.
I think switching to plastics is a really important thing. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about is the actual impacts of plastic that goes beyond the disposal side. So plastic is actually somewhat the petrochemical industry is involved in that, and so it goes back to in the linear economy we have extraction, production, distribution, consumption, and then disposal. So we're only seeing the disposal side of it, how much of an impact it makes on pollution. But there's so much other issues that happens in terms of social and environmental issues in terms of the extraction and production side. So plastics are, there are so many different types of plastics, but the building blocks of plastics are called the nurdles, which we have all seen have come onto our beaches from the ship. So nurdles are essentially when the petrochemical industry extracts all these gases in liquid form and then turns them into methane, which is then cracked into ethane, which is then turned into plastic nurdles. So essentially, those extraction processes are very, very detrimental to the environment as well as the social side. It affects all the indigenous communities living in those areas that lose their land. It affects the mainly lower income and minority communities that live in those areas that don't really have a say, because all of these factories and the way that where they're basically putting these wells and putting these pipelines and everything is in these areas where people don't really have a say in how things happen. So there's health issues from respiratory issues and cancer and all sorts of things that happen on the other side of the plastic industry because of our demand. So when you switch to plastics, you are not only helping the environment in so many ways and you are feeling happy about it, as Kanchana said, you're really helping so many other communities and you're really making the impact in a different way because of the fact that if you're not consuming these plastics, the demand for the production of it will become lower and lower, which will become much less of an issue. So
yeah, perfect. So it's like having a domino effect on that, and it's really important to think about our consumption. But now it raises the question of like where we can find more information when we purchase products, because for microbeads, for instance, there are certain products that still contains microbeads, and I think that gets dismissed very quickly because of the lack of awareness that we have. So what should we look out for regarding the impact on the environment on these products? Miss Alina Fernando, if you could give your input on that.
Definitely. So we are bombarded with so much information when it comes to new products and products that we shouldn't use, products that we should use. So some of the resources that I have used that make it a lot easier to find those products that aren't, testing on animals, that aren't made out of plastic, that aren't made out of toxic chemicals that will end up in our waterways and into the oceans and then affecting marine life and so forth. One of the specific apps that I use for cruelty-free is it's called Bunny Free app, and you can download it. There's also so many websites and resources. That's the one thing that technology has given us, is the ability to have access to all sorts of information to help us make better decisions. And there's so many Instagram accounts and people to follow, and so there is definitely ways to filter out all the information that isn't necessary and then looking into the other things. Another one is if you're, again, so with microbeads, as you said, there's an app called Beat the Microbead, and it gives a list of every single, or most, that they have tested and everything that they've looked through of the beauty care and body products. Like you get them in your toothpaste as well, that some people don't know about, and then there's face washes and stuff like that. So microbeads are a common exfoliant, which is why they put them in there. But when they enter the oceans, they're ingested by fish, by anything, turtles, and so it becomes a really big issue for the marine life as well. So there's a few apps that you can look at, and again, always you can message me and ask me for anything, because I'm always there as a resource as well. I'm sure Kanchana will do the same. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I think the apps that you mentioned as well, I think it's really important to realize that there are resources available if we need them. But Ms. Kanchana, do you also have something to add to this?
Yes, Kasumi. Actually, I come from old generation where these apps and technology is still like, ooh, I can't really, tolerate with some of the technological issue. And sometimes I lose my patience when there is any issue with my computer or my WhatsApp. But my young son, who is 18 years old, comes and always save me. So, Alina, I'm sure you belong to that generation, but I would simply tell the people who belong to my generation, other than the apps what you can look for when you are purchasing products and all. The first my thing is, my policy is you reject. So conscious consumerism is very much important for our lives to have a healthy lifestyle and a healthy environment. That's what we have been preaching for over 20 years now under Eco-Friendly Volunteers, our own organization, individual change. So conscious consumption, consumerism, really takes us where to select needs and wants. So in between, whether you go for wants or whether you are sticking only into the need. So for me, in my generation, actually, I have said no to rejected many items like shampoo, beauty products, and all these things. But I'm not asking you to do the same, but I'm giving you some tips where you can really start thinking, do I really need this product or body lotions or anything? Because now world is really moving towards more healthy line. Like instead of body lotion, you can apply just coconut oil. So there are ways that you can switch your life into the natural lifestyle, and even handmade soap and all these things. So then these issues like, chemicals other than paraben or, like microbeads coming into our lives is always reduced. So that way, and also when you can try to buy some products, you have to look at the package. And if the producers are honest enough, they have to really mention all the ingredients in the label. But having said that, we can't believe all the producers, whether they are actually really mentioning all the products in it. And also even they mention, this is some of our work for over many years now, ingredients and e-numbers. Because e-numbers are Greek to many people. Yeah. Because if some bad chemical is mentioned, they say like, if it is a color, E100s, 101, 102, 105, something like. If it is, preservative, it is like 200. So where that knowledge our local people, local consumers have, they really don't remember this. So then actually, in that case, such an app would be very useful. The ingredients of E100 to 1000. And then it is not directly related to plastics, because these e-numbers are mainly with the food and additives. But again, you can see the plastic packaging and the wrapper, if that recycle number or even plastic products, because we have to accept that we can't really reject all the plastic products. We need some of the plastic products, something like computers and phones, some containers, food storage. We are using reusable plastic. So that knowledge is very important. Which plastic type is good to reuse and good to purchase? So when the plastic recycle numbers are coming like 1 to 7, inside that recyclable triangle, I'm sure many of you, when you see the packaging or the product, you will see a little triangle. And in the middle of that, there is a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what we always ask is try to avoid if the number is number 3, number 6, and number 7. because number 3 could be PVC or phthalates, or number 6 could be styrofoam, or number 7 could be mixed plastic or bisphenol A. All these chemicals are either acting as endocrine disruptions and hormone, that means hormone blocking agents, or cancer causing agents, or not good for reusing, all this knowledge. But Kasumi and Alina, you know that where that knowledge come from to us in Sri Lanka. Is it through universities or school curriculum or nothing? Actually, it is from our own interest. We have to dig for such information and find it. So it's quite challenging. But my advice for the consumers, general public, other than these apps and all, yes, if you have the facilities, please use them, start using them, and remember it. And also, if you don't have such knowledge or such eager to go for that, always try to avoid any numbers in the packaging. If there are many numbers in the packaging mentioned, E100, 200, 300 something, try to avoid that product. It's the same for the beauty products. If there are like tongue twisting names in it, like, you know, more chemical words, I can't sometimes read them, kind of. Then whenever I see that in whatever the product, I said, oops, that's not for me. Because it should be not, I'm sure that it's not natural product. So, because if it is natural product, it will have like water and salt and, you know, sugar or something in it. So we can always avoid such. There is a saying in Sinhala we always use, but it is like something like this. If your grandmother can't read it, forget it. Because that grandmother's generation, these kind of chemicals were not there in those products, and no such products even. So you have to really think about your traditional knowledge and try to avoid this commercial gimmicks. And also, I'm always saying, sorry to say this, if there are any commercial advertisers here, if there is advertisement for such product, better to avoid that product, because nobody is advertising anything for mukunu and our herbs or you know, coconut. I mean, just fresh coconut. Is there any advertisement you can see that, okay, get a coconut and make a pol sambal and eat? No. So it's always better to have this processed food. Stop eating it if possible, or try to avoid it. Then you will be getting healthy products as well as free of plastic, and nature will be happy as well, and your impact, your carbon footprint, your emission would be reduced. So that's my kind of advice that I can give for the consumers.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kanchana and Ms. Alina. That was really insightful as to what we need to be aware of. But then again, now it raises the question of, now when we switch to an alternative, what do we do with that alternative? What are the processes of discarding the alternative products that we use, and how sustainable would they be? And if Ms. Kanchana could give an insight on that.
Yeah, again, Kasumi, I start with my conscious consumerism word, because we have introduced this for the society when we do our awareness programs. Follow the 10R. 10R is beyond 3R. We always know reduce, reuse, recycle. But that's not enough for current lifestyle to avoid the damage that we are doing for nature, ourselves as well as for nature. So we always introduce this 10R system, starting with rejecting. So even when you're looking for alternatives, you have to start with rejecting. If I don't use plastic, if I don't want a plastic container, then whenever you buy the next alternative for that, you have to think of either it's made out of aluminium or stainless steel or fake stainless steel. This is one thing. So for instance, if I switch from my plastic bottle to kind of sustainable, reusable water bottle, then most of Sri Lankan stainless steel looking water bottles, unfortunately, are aluminium made. But people get confused. And it's then we had to start talking about, okay, instead of the kids' plastic water bottle, don't go for aluminium reusable fake looking stainless steel. Try to select the best stainless steel water bottle. And it is sad because our markets are full of these fake alternatives. So that way, I don't know whether I have to say that don't use a plastic bottle, don't use a water bottle, or train your kid to use a glass water bottle with the responsibility if you can't find a good alternative stainless steel. And yes, there is a risk little kid taking a glass water bottle to school, but then at least elders can have it, or the grown-up kids can have it. Or you can really search for a good stainless steel water bottle and find it. That is one simple example where I want to tell you about consciousness rather than this alternative to this alternative and then the true alternative. And for instance, for natural products, otherwise are okay. So if you are using a plastic bag, then of course there are enough natural alternatives. Take your old cloth and make your own cotton cloth bag. And we even not only cotton, we introduced the sari bags, because old saris in Sri Lanka are not reused. There are reusable, yes, you can donate to somebody, but then really old ones, what can you do? But still the material is very strong. Then you can make sari bags. So the sari bags are very popular now. We make out of the sari little tote bag where you can have it in your purse and take it into my sari bag that I'm using at the moment here is about 6 years old now. Still it is there. And you can put 10 kilos of your whatever the shopping in it, everything. And then it's washable and then you can reuse. So likewise you have, and then that's a synthetic material. But then, of course, you may have to discard it in such a way that which is available at that time. You can't be 100% perfect in getting these alternatives and doing the best thing. But in general, in your main lifestyle, you can definitely go for alternatives and think about compostable alternatives. But having said that, now again commercial gimmicks comes into the market, and then they say, oh, my bag is compostable, but it is not ideally really true soil making compostable. It's just degradable and breaking into small pieces and contaminating soil with microplastics. But this comes even for our shopping supermarkets. They say, oh, this miss when I reject, because even though it is degradable or compostable, I don't take any bags. I always refuse. I reject because I take my own and I'm ready to refuse it. But they say, no, madam, please take it. It's compostable. And then nowadays there are true compostable bags, but why should I need it? I don't need it. Even though it's compostable, I don't need it. And if it is not true compostable, it is degradable, but they are happily offering it. Why do they do that? So this is what you have to be very conscious about your consumption, and then going for 100% natural alternatives only when needed. Don't just go for alternatives just because you want it. Only when needed, just go for that natural alternatives. Otherwise, you will end up in consumption again.
That's very true. I also have to mention with the timing, we have to a bit of like hurry up. But you showed the eco brick that you used before. Could you show us again how you did that and what you did with the eco brick that you made?
Yeah, I will describe you, Kasumi, because when you follow the 10R, you are rejecting many things and then refusing many things. But unfortunately, there are things coming into your home which are unavoidable, like wrappers. If you buy packet of tea leaves, the wrapper comes. And other than that, there are very, very dangerous things coming into your home. And I will show you that if you can see this little string, and it usually comes with these kind of tags when you buy clothing or any products. So these are tags coming in with your new products, and this string is plastic. It's really, really dangerous. And these things, when you travel airplanes traveling, these are tags that they put into security. And all these are really damaging. Nobody takes for recycling. So where is your responsibility? Me as a zero waste person, I'm not sad about getting these things because I have the alternative, and I just put this here in the eco bricks. It's just taking an empty 1 liter, 1.5 liter water bottle. Actually, having said that, I don't have these bottles because we don't consume, but there are enough bottles on the roads and with the people. So we just ask them, ask to give us. Therefore, and take a little stick like this, very quite hard wooden stick, and then stuff in everything here inside and make it a very compacted bottle. And I will press it. See, no sound. Once you press it, no sound. So when you have like similar looking bricks, you can make structures. I have at my home, there are personal stools, but here the bench that in our eco garden, Metta garden in Sri Lanka, and you can sit on your garbage. So you're happy that you are not polluting environment. And this is one structure we made in Delhi when I introduced it to Delhi. And there are other things like playgrounds. Kids can have such these play snakes or whatever, but all the, instead of other bricks, all the eco bricks are inside. The global eco brick movement, the co-founder Russell Mayer is a good friend of mine. He introduced this concept to me, and I introduced it to Sri Lanka and Delhi now. And we have been working together. Under this situation, even at the moment, we are trying to create awareness on ocean eco bricks. That's another new thing for Sri Lanka. Once you clean the oceans, and ocean plastics are not clean like this, because you have to insert the domestic eco bricks, you have to insert the clean plastics dry level, and there should be no any wetness inside this, because this could be bloated with the time. But ocean eco bricks, you have a different method. We are going to introduce that in very soon to Sri Lanka. And you can have all the dirty plastics into bricks, and then you can do the same structures like that in certain conditions. So we have some hope. When we clean the ocean, we can do something rather than giving it to the municipal council, which will end up again in the ocean. So we have to stop that. And let's see how we can go on.
Wow, thank you so much for that. I think it's very much needed for such innovations. But how about you, Miss Alina? How do you, what are the processes that you use to discard the alternative products that you use, and how sustainable are they?
So to agree with Kanchana, I definitely refuse as much as possible. As she said, everything she said was correct. There is so much, as you would say, greenwashing around certain products now when it comes to, and greenwashing, for anybody who doesn't know, means when a company basically doesn't, kind of misleads you on the quality of their products, or the fact that it might be environmentally friendly, or even that their company itself is an environmentally friendly company. So there are certain ways that you can see those kind of things, and one of the most typical ways that they do that is when they are lying about the real materials that something is made out of, or even the process, and using really fancy words like 100% compostable, 100% organic. Those kind of things are such easy things that anybody can say, but there's nothing to back them up. So with greenwashing, there's a lot of ways you can tell that something is not what it is. So there's one of the most typical ones is vagueness. So when they just say different keywords like sustainable, 100% compostable, and those aren't backed up with actual information, so that's vagueness. Then there's things like irrelevance. So one of the really easy, an example would be with CFCs, which is chlorofluorocarbon. That is actually banned from the entire world for the amount of carcinogens and everything it has, and they used to be in refrigerants, and it's been out of products for a really long time. But sometimes companies will just use the word CFC free to try and get people to be like, oh, so that must mean it's a good product. So just like little things like that. So you really have to look for those as well. But as Kanchana also said, natural materials is what I try to go for as well when it comes to a lot of products that I get. And I use what I already have. One of the things that a lot of people get misled on when you go towards a zero waste life, especially, I'm sure Kanchana doesn't have that as much because of the older generationness and not being on social media. But as somebody in our generation, I can tell you that there's so many people, even sustainable businesses, that still want you to buy their stuff. So they're going to keep saying, you can get this. But as a person who is part of this conscious consumerism, which is exactly what Kanchana said, is you only use what you need and only buy something when something else that you already own is over. So I see so many different products going around, but I'm using the ones that I already have, because the most sustainable thing to do is to use what you already have versus going and buying something else, because then you're just going to have so many products and then you're never going to use them. So one of the things that I do a lot is refuse. And as she said, so when it comes to certain products, I nowadays, there's so many new things that you can get, and everybody wants those things because obviously you want to be part of the community and all of that. There's all of that like herd community, as you would say. And so some of the products that I have gotten, I make sure that they are compostable. And one of the other things to look at is if something is compostable, there's compostable in your own home versus industrially compostable. So that's another thing to look for, because companies don't really go, oh, so this is only compostable in an industrial massive machine that you can't own in your own home. They're not going to tell you that. So those are the kind of things you have to make sure and look for. And I also, I only buy products that are natural. So I used to make a lot of my own products when I was abroad, but in Sri Lanka, some of those things might not be available to us, but there are alternatives. Like coconut oil is an easy natural alternative. You don't have to worry about packaging or anything. It's natural. It just goes into your hair, and then even if it gets washed into the drains, into the oceans, there's no impact of those things. So coconut oil can be used as a lip, like if you put coconut oil and sugar, you can use it as a lip scrub. Like there's so many easy DIY recipes out there that you can make things for yourself. Natural deodorants, all those things that people might want that necessarily don't really want to get rid of in their lifestyle because of how used to them they are. Those are easy alternatives. So always looking for those really natural things. And I also nowadays, I try to only, if I'm purchasing something, I purchase from companies that do take backs. So if it's a glass jar, I only take glass jars. So plastic, usually I try not to take it all. So when it's a glass jar, if it's a company that's going to take that exact jar back from you, clean it, sanitize it and all that, and put the same thing into the market again, it's a circular economy. So we are looking, when it comes to zero waste, we're actually trying to achieve circular economy, which is when nothing gets disposed, nothing ends up in a landfill. It's going from extraction, all of that, production, no disposal. So it goes back again and again. So that's what a circular economy is.
Thank you for that. I think that's really important, especially about the greenwashing as well. And there's a lot of comments as well how greenwashing needs to be brought to the masses. But to wrap up, I do have one final question to ask before we move on to the audience questions. And make sure, please, I'm asking the audience to write down the questions now so we can answer them at the end. So the last question is what are the inspiring ways to use alternatives to plastics, especially to receive engagement from non-eco-conscious individuals? When we're trying to think about from their perspective, how can we inspire them? And if Miss Alina could begin, I think that would be great.
So one of the things that I learned is don't preach. If you are doing something and someone sees that and then they come to you and ask you themselves, that is the only way they're really going to make the changes. If you're going to just preach to them about how they should be making these changes for themselves, most of the time people are, they deny it or they just don't really care too much about it. So what I have done a lot of the time, an example was when I went to like CCC with my cousins a while back. This is way before COVID, and I took my reusable cup with me that I've had for like 4 years now, and I took it with me because I didn't want them to be serving me any juices and stuff from like the food court, because I didn't really have a choice where I was going. So I ended up going to the food court and I gave them my cup. I said, can you put it in this? And they all looked at me like, okay. And afterwards they realized, oh wow, like this is a great thing for you to do. But so you should just do what you're doing, and then it'll be a ripple effect where it goes from person to person, because they're seeing the impact that it has and how much they can help the environment. And also a lot of these zero waste methods, a lot of these sustainable things not only help the environment, but they're much better for you, for your health, because so many chemicals, so many things going into your body, the amount of things that that affects you, like endocrine, all those issues that we are basically being told, we have to consume because of the commercialization, because of capitalism. All of that is, in the end, detrimental to us as people as well. And most people don't realize that. So just doing, and I would say education. I mean, workshops, having those options for people who do want to make those changes is important. Things like this panel is important so that people can learn from people who have the things to say about it and the experiences. Yeah. And Kanchana is a great example of that, because she's been doing it for almost longer than I've been alive. So
thank you. Exactly. And I think that's really important. And unfortunately, we have to wrap up soon. So we will be answering some audience questions. So one of the questions, which is really important, especially in the community of Sri Lanka, most people at home in Sri Lanka actually burns plastic and other materials or try to bury them because they don't have proper facilities for recycling. So how can this practice be reduced? Ms. Kanchana Weerakoon, if you could briefly explain what we can do.
Yes, actually, it was a very old practice. Now, I would say, I'm answering this very quickly. Now, the last 2 or 3 years, this is not going to be a problem. Please stop burning. And whatever you have as non-recyclable plastic, collect them, clean it, store it, and there is some recyclers. I can name one, Katana Recyclers. They take all your non-recyclable polythene wrappers, chocolate wrappers, biscuit wrappers, aluminium, everything. And he's a good friend of mine, Jayanta. So they just take and make file covers out of it, folders out of it, so they can upcycle it. So please check for them where they take everything, even yogurt cups, everything they take. So no need to burn anything. And also have your own eco brick, and then whatever the tiny pieces, as I mentioned, can go in, and you can have your own eco brick, and even eco brick you can use for making some structures. And also you can give it away for recycling as an eco brick, because it's just easy for Kanchana recyclers to cut open, and then use it for whatever the work that they are doing. So when you burn plastic and polythene, dioxin and all these bad gases are giving us cancer. So stop burning that, because otherwise we need to raise funds for more cancer hospitals. Why do we do that when we have an easy solution? So don't bury them, nothing. Always, best thing is reduce bringing them. Try to buy bulk rather than packaging ones. That's what I always do. And always try to be the change you want to see in the world. Otherwise, no point of just talking about it and pointing your finger for others while you are not doing anything good.
Thank you so much, Kanchana. I think that was really important for people to realize that burning plastic is not the solution. And another question, the final question that we will be able to answer for today is that I think most people are not aware of the damages of what they do. So how can we make them aware? Ms. Alina, if you could briefly explain, we have maybe 1 minute.
Okay, I will do my best to try and explain that. Again, I guess education is important, and the issue with a lot of this is that people aren't aware, as you say. So education is important, but also looking at those products that have those examples of the chemicals and stuff like that, just by looking at that, you can tell if it's going to be impacting the environment and your health and other people. I guess that's the best way to sum it up.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, and unfortunately, it is now time to conclude the session. And I would like to thank our exclusive patron, the EU delegation in Sri Lanka, summit patron Dilma Conservation and Keels, and supporting patron Plastic Cycle. And I'm very grateful for the session we had today and learning inspirational methods to alternatives to plastic. And I truly hope that our audience enjoyed and learned more about the topic, alternatives to plastic. Please do stay tuned for the rest of the summit, as we intend to talk a lot more about our oceans. Our next session will be on corporate solution in minimizing plastic pollution, and it will start in another 15 minutes. Thank you once again, Ms. Kanchana Weerakoon and Ms. Alina Fernando, for joining in for today's session. It was such an honor, and I wish you, all of you, and the expert panelists a very good day ahead.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and